What's going on, Reef Builders? I'm Jake Adams, coming back to you with another video from the studio. And this is a very interesting topic because it was never really on my roadmap of videos to do a topic on until very recently. And a very experienced reefer asked me if I had a special technique for gluing corals in the tank, so submerged rocks and submerged aquascapes. And then I kind of demonstrated to him what I do, and I realized that, you know, over the last decade or so, I've realized that there's a lot of nuance to it. So for sure, there is going to be a lot of you that probably know everything that I'm going to say. There's only a few tips and tricks, but if you've ever been frustrated by gluing corals in your tank and having them knocked over, hopefully these few tips are going to help you out. Just have a better, more successful frag gluing experience, because definitely I would say one of the top 2 or 3 reasons that corals die, especially small frags, is falling off the rockwork. It's falling into other corals, and it's one of the most easily prevented forms of coral death. But I can imagine how it can become frustrating if you've tried it a few times and it's not working out for you. All right, so we're gonna bring it in a little bit closer. We've got a few corals here to show you. So here we have a standard frag disc. Doesn't have to be that close. And I'm just using a peg as kind of a simulated coral. So basically, I don't pre-soak my frag plugs. I'm not super worried about air bubbles. I'm not a commercial frag producer, so I'm not worried about that, because I know you guys are already warming up in the comments, oh, you need to soak your frag plugs. So, all right, so we're just gonna show you how to do it. I'm using, again, another question people are gonna ask. I'm using the Polyp Lab Premium Frag Glue. There's a lot of great glues on the market. I just love having a kind of, a big inventory, an arsenal of little tubes that I can power through and always have a fresh one available. Okay, now we're ready. So we've got our frag plug, and most people would probably just put the glue on, but I like to agitate it a little bit, right? So just to get a little bit more, make sure that surface tension is not keeping it from gluing to the frag plug. And then we have our simulated frag, which ideally is gonna have a flat base. It's so much easier if you can cut them down. And then I'll put it down on the base and I'll kind of pick it up. But to be honest, pick it up and kind of swish it around. And then once you have it well moved around, boom, put it on there, and then just let it sit for a few moments. And just gonna let that sit right there. Another trick you can do, and this is something we do here at the studio, try to lay out all the frag plugs that we're going to use and just go ahead and dab them with some glue. And it might be 5, 10, 15 minutes before we put a coral in there, but if one just has some time to pre-cure, it's gonna set so much faster. So I've got an acro frag, an actual acro frag, not a simulated one. And you can see I've got a really nice cut here on the bottom. So it's gonna have a really nice smooth contact. So I'll just go ahead and put this one here, but like I said, I'll dab it just to make sure we're breaking through that surface tension. And then once I get it on, you can feel that's already kind of sticky and gooey and it's ready. Press, hold, and boom, that coral's ready to go. Whew, I'm glad that worked the first try. It would have been super embarrassing if the frag plug fell. Now the other thing you can do, I've literally never used super glue accelerator. I know some people swear by it. It's not my jam. Once you got the glue on there and the coral on there, just kind of, just give it a little rinse right here. If you dunk the frag that's freshly glued, some of the bubbles in that glue might kind of float upward towards the coral and look unsightly. So we just tend to do it here out of water. And just give a little bit of water, and yeah, we might repeat this a few times over a few minutes. If it's an acro or most of the common stuff that you're going to be fragging and gluing down, not going to be a big deal. But yeah, you can see corals here, corals ready to go. So then just set them over here and let it cure for a little bit, but that thing's ready to put in the tank. But I think the bigger challenge is going to be gluing corals into an aquascape where your rock is underwater, so you don't have these tricks, right? You don't really have the luxury of putting a dab on the rock. So let's go over to a tank where we're going to glue down a few torch corals and see how it works. All right, so this is the Euphilia display, and you can see we've got a clearing here where we're trying to work on some of this tough sponge, and over here we remove some of the torch corals. Actually, mostly for this video. I took them off, did a little pruning, because I wanted an opportunity to clean them up. So one thing that you'll notice is that the rock is very clean, you know, so you definitely need clean rock if you're gluing to thick algae or biofilms or just anything that shouldn't be there. Obviously, you're not gonna have a good time. All right, so we've got our coral glue, and I'm just gonna do this 3 times and 3 different close-ups. So I like to blow off just a little bit of the water, dab it, but as I'm putting it on the coral, I'm making sure that it's, you know, like engaging with the surface, right? So I do this dab feature and make sure you get a nice little glob on there. Some people go really crazy. I find that doesn't necessarily help, but that's appropriate amount. So then what I'll do is, let's see, where do I want this guy? I'm gonna put him here, and if you bring it in a little bit closer, I'll dab it down, and then I'll pull it up, and you can see there's a little string left. Dab it down, pull it up, and then, you know, just kind of get that action. And as you're kind of swirling it around, I guess, then slowly press it and hold for 2 to 3 seconds. And all right, 2 to 3 seconds. I did turn the flow off, and then you wanna wait at least 10 seconds. That's gonna be most of your curing time. And then give it a little wave, and so the coral doesn't wiggle, you're good. All right, so this is where I want that coral. So I'm going to touch, and then you can see the strings start to form with the contact, and I will wiggle it. There you see like the strings kind of coming off, and try to gather that underneath the coral, and wiggle, 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 until it starts to get kind of tight. And there you go. That one needs to be pressed in a little bit more. That's pretty good. And once again, you just wait a few seconds and you'll get most of the curing done. All right, so this one we're gonna do really close. Once again, wanna make sure to have a pretty clean surface. Wipe it off however you'd like. And as you're applying the glue, make sure to give it that dab. You know, press it in so you have really good contact between the glue and the surface of the coral. And this is basically what we're trying to repeat when we start making contact with the rock, okay? So we got that right there. And just to show you that this is, you know, not a trick, but it really works, we're gonna do a horizontal one, and I'm just gonna push it down against this rock surface here, and you see the strings coming up. That's when you know you're really starting to get that good stickiness. And I just like to wiggle, press and hold. And it's still a little soft, so we're just gonna wait, you know, a few seconds before we waft it. And so we'll do these others. You see they're really solid. And then now this one's super solid. Okay. All right, so as you can see, you know, this process works really well for corals a little bit harder to hold, like euphyllias. You just wanna make sure to have a clean base to your coral or your frag. A handsaw really helps if you're trying to glue to a flat surface, but that's not mandatory. The glue and some form of epoxy can sometimes work together to fill in those gaps between the rock surface and your coral surface. But I know this seems like a really basic topic, but like everything else, there's a lot of nuance to mastering the art form of gluing corals onto the tank. And I'm not saying I'm a master, but after, you know, dozens of years of gluing corals in tanks, I realized that there are some little tips and tricks that I think can help everybody out. So another thing that you might do before you go to glue a coral frag is try practicing, you know, some of these techniques with some pieces of rubble or some small pieces of rock into your tank, or even like dead coral branches. That way you'll really get a feeling and some of that muscle memory for the feedback that you get when you dab the coral down and you start feeling some of that resistance, swish it around, and then you get a little bit more friction, and then you press and hold for 3 to 10 seconds. And hopefully with these tips and tricks, we can all prevent or at least reduce the number of corals that fall down into the sand or into other corals or just down on their face. So this is a great time to post any questions or any of your tips about how to glue corals into your established reef aquarium aquascape. I'm sure there's going to be plenty, but I think I've kind of covered it. So we'll see you guys in the comments, but make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.